Good afternoon and welcome to the CELADON Pharmaceuticals plc full-year results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and they can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll, and I would now like to hand you over to CEO James Shaw. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, thank you. And thank you everybody for joining us today. Some new ones and some ones that have been supportive over the years. Hopefully at the end of this presentation, we can make it a lot more clear of the success that we've had through the past 5 years. I'm also joined by Jonathan Turner, our CFO, who will go through a number of the slides. What I'd like to do is, and I always tend to start with this slide, and the idea is that we try to reiterate that CELADON is a pharmaceutical company that operates using cannabinoids. It is not a cannabis company. There are completely fundamental differences of how we set the business up. The cannabis adult recreational market is one market, but we are in that pharmaceutical space. As you can see there are 4 key pillars to the business, and I would like to just dive into them a little bit more in detail. And this is driven from some of the feedback that we've had over the years from investors and customers, etc. So the first one is patient first, and we have had some feedback from people saying, it seems obvious, why do you have to mention that? But every single business that I've built and every business that I've seen that has been very successful always starts with the patient or the customer. In our case, because we're a pharma company, we call them patients. If we're selling widgets, we'd probably call them customers. We have to start there no matter what. And I will never diversify from that. And the reason why we start there is we can then identify what is the target, what is the disease we're looking at, and then produce the product for that, and then produce the right customer service. So it's fundamental we always start with patient first. Incredible building block. The next one is collaboration. Over the past 4 to 5 years, we've collaborated and met lots of incredible companies. Typically, we work very closely with doctors in the UK and non-UK. We work closely with universities, etc. And the reason why we do this is we've got to remember this is, whilst it's been legalized for a number of years in the UK, it is still new to the country. So we are still going through that educational process. For example, after this call, I have 5 doctors that run 2 clinics in London coming to site. And they're the kind of collaborations. Now, if those doctors go away and start prescribing, the idea there is they'll have hundreds of patients that hopefully they will start prescribing a CELADON product. So collaborations really work in many ways, not just doctors. The next one is innovation. And I know that a number of investors tend to get scared when a company's, I say a startup, we have been going 5, 6 years. But investors do get nervous when you start talking about innovation. But we do have an innovation budget, albeit it's incredibly small. But the reason why not the obvious reason of innovation is to keep ahead of the curve, but it's actually, we have a core team of people that we have to have in place to get the licenses that we have. We also have a core infrastructure in place that we've had to put in place over the years to get the licenses that we have and to be able to operate. So whilst we've been waiting all these years to get our licenses, what we've said to the team is, look, rather than sit around waiting for the license, let's try and innovate. Let's try and do something. And we've been, over the past 3 to 4 years, been doing some incredible things in the background, which hopefully over the coming months and years, we will be able to start releasing that to the market. We haven't just been sat around waiting to get our licenses. So innovation is key to every business, but we've been fortunate at a very small cost. We've managed to, what we believe is, innovate some incredible stuff, which hopefully you'll start seeing in due course. And the next one is determination. Again, sounds pretty obvious. But I'm going to use the word entrepreneur, and people that know me know I don't really like the word entrepreneur. It does get bandied around quite a lot, but certain entrepreneurs operate differently, and I operate in the sense that what drives my determination is the fact of not wanting to fail. So that's one of the key ones. The other real driver for me, and you know, you may think I'm just saying this because some of you are investors. It isn't. The key driver for me on determination is, whilst I invested in the business in the early days, I have since took external investment in. So I take that very strongly and to heart, where it's my job and my duty to manage that money correctly and try my hardest to at least get the investors the money back, and hopefully, you know, tens and tens of 10x on top of their money. So that as well is the one that keeps me determined. And then the other one is obviously the patience. You know, it's since I founded the company, and one of the main reasons why I founded the company was when I speak to these patients and we can produce a product and we can make revenue, we can get to profitability, and we can help people as well. What a business we are building, and what a business this is going to look like in the next, God knows, 5 to 10 to 15 years. So these 4 building blocks are what we call the foundation, and we are now in the process of building a skyscraper that nobody's ever seen before, I believe. So it's fundamental that I get those points over to you. We're a pharmaceutical company, and there are 4 key building blocks. On that note, I'll hand over to John, and he'll take you through some of the numbers.
Thank you very much, Jim. Good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, this is the results presentation for the year to 31st December 2023. So I just thought I'd go over some of the highlights of the year and the successes to date. So obviously, the first point to note, as Jim's already touched on, is that we are producing a pharmaceutical-grade cannabinoid product. In order to do that, we have a fully controlled indoor hydroponic facility. That gives us that consistent, reliable pharmaceutical-grade product, and also because it's fully controlled indoors, it allows us to obtain higher yields than you might get from other facilities such as outdoor or glasshouse grows. You will have seen that during December 2023, we announced that we had completed our first commercial product supplies. And obviously they are continuing since then, and that follows on the back of 7 successful harvests during the course of 2022 that we undertook for the purposes of getting our regulatory licenses. We need to remember that it was only in January 2023 that the MHRA gave us our GMP manufacturing authority, and it was in, I think, about March or April 2023 that the Home Office released the restrictions on our license that allowed us to make those commercial sales. Since that license has been fully extended, we've now got 3 contracts in place with annual revenues anticipated to be about £10 million. And there are a number of other contracts that we are in the process of negotiating with customers both in the UK and beyond. Those initial contracts from customers demonstrate the advantages of being a UK-based supplier. It means that products available in the country, we don't need to have timely and time delays with importing product on a named patient basis to customers. On the slide, you can see the picture in the top right-hand corner. That is the fully constructed phase 2 of our facility, or rather, sorry, that's one corridor of the fully constructed phase 2 of our facility. We're in the process of fitting that out so that we can start increasing the output of the product. But there's also other things that we're doing as well. So we are looking at some additional yield improvements in our phase 1 that should allow us to increase product during the course of the year as well. So moving on to some of the numbers, as you'll appreciate, as I just noted, it was only in December 2023 that we were able to make our first commercial sales. So whilst the revenue number of £75,000 is significantly higher than the figure for 2022, clearly there's a lot more to go, and that's only really on the basis of 1 month's worth of revenue. The operating loss is a touch higher than at 5.9 million compared to 5.4 million during the course of 2022. That's because we've been building out the team in terms of adding GMP operations resource, looking at our sales and marketing function, and generally scaling up. And in addition, we've been spending, as Jim said, some limited spend on research and development. Clearly, the comparator for the loss before tax of 7.5 million last year includes a lot of transaction costs relating to the reverse takeover. But there's a note a bit further down the page, just giving a few details on what some of those things were. But clearly, they were one-off and are not going to recur again in the future. As you may have read in the reports, or as you'll have seen from last year, we entered into a revolving credit facility for £7 million with a 2-year duration. We've recently extended the expiration on that, so that it runs out now at the end of November 2025. During the course of 23, we raised £3 million of equity, and you'll have seen, I think last Friday we announced that we'd raised another £2.1 million of investment. So over the course of the business to date, there's been about £30 million of capital raised for the business, which demonstrates the support that some shareholders like yourselves and others provide to the company, and the confidence they have in us realising our objectives. And then, as a final point on slide, at the end of December 23, there's £1.3 million worth of cash bolstered by.
Apologies there. If I may just jump back in. Jonathan, I believe we have just lost your audio here, sir. So what I might do is I will just refresh your browser here, sir.
Can you hear me again, Alex?
Oh,
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you're back. Yeah, all good.
Okay. So at what point did you lose me?
So just about 20 seconds ago, yeah.
The equity round that we've just closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. So I apologies if I'm repeating myself, but so the recent 2.1 million equity raise takes up to about £30 million of equity raised during the life of the business to date. And then the final point on the slide around the cash balance at the end of December, that was, I think, just below £1.3 million. Obviously, that's been bolstered since then with product sales and with the recent equity raising. With that, I'll pass back to Jim.
Thank you, John. So what we'd like to do now with the slides is try and take you on the journey, and again, this is feedback from a number of people that have been asking questions over the years of, why is it taking you so long, which you'll see a bit further on one of the slides. But the encouraging thing that we are seeing is the market globally is now starting to get traction. Whilst, yes, it seems slow, it's been around for nearly 20 years, Canada, etc. The advantage is that we're trying to demonstrate on this slide is, if you look at Australia, 2016, 17 Germany, Luxembourg, and then UK and Portugal, what we've managed to do in the UK and some of the other countries, we've managed to learn from some of the good things that Canada did and some of the bad things. And what I mean by that is we feel that Canada built too much capacity, and that is now playing out. So what we've done, and we've seen this happen in Australia, is we've built out to demand, and that's what we're doing now. So we're building out to demand, and we're looking at other opportunities as well. But if you see on that slide and the next slides, we are at a pivotal turning point in the whole pharmaceutical medical cannabis market, where we believe it is certainly on that trajectory up. And Australia is a prime example of that. So 2016, Australia got legalised. It was a very slow start, just like the UK. And the fundamental reasons why it was a slow start is when they legalised it in Australia, they did it under what's called a specials framework, just the same as we've done in the UK, maybe because that's a Commonwealth country, etc. But they legalised it as special. You had to have doctors on a specials register. The minute they opened it up by saying, actually, now you can use GPs to prescribe, the Australian market just took off. Other key drivers of why it took off was education, was the fact of telemedicine, etc., etc. So we believe, I mean, speaking to some of our partners in Australia, these are the reasons why the Australian market started to take off. And we are convinced that the UK, whilst it's 2 years behind Australia, we are convinced the same will happen in the UK. And if that does happen, if we look at the bottom where we've got what I call like the little dumbbell or a dog bone, on the right, on the left-hand side, we've got, you know, there's roughly 1 million patients currently in Australia being prescribed. If we look at that as a comparison of our population to theirs, i.e. there's just over twice as many population. If we had all those ticks ticked in the UK today, there's an argument to say that we potentially would have 2.5 million patients today in the UK. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of timing, and it's our job as CELADON and all the industry people to try and get the ticks that Australia have done the same to happen in the UK. So as I said, in Australia, it was more around prescribing doctors that helped open the market up. In Germany, we believe the reason why Germany has been a good success story is that is mainly been around reimbursement. So in Germany, a number of patients, I think it's nearly 50% of patients, can get reimbursed for a percentage of the prescription, and that's what's helped Germany open up. We do believe Germany is now on another wave of expansion due to the recent changes in the regulation in Germany, whereby they're allowing prescribing doctors to open up a little bit more. I think the number were 1 in 6 were only getting a prescription. Now that the new regulation, I think that'll increase. So you can see, looking back at these markets, that things are starting to change. So if you look at the UK landscape, what is the opportunity in front of us? Well, if we just look at the chronic pain space alone, whilst there's a lot of things within chronic pain, but if we look at that, 8 million people, on the black market that are saying that they would like to get medical cannabis. There's 1.8 million people there. So the potential opportunity in the UK is incredible. It's as big as certainly Germany, the potential. Australia may not be. I think it will dwarf Australia because of the population size, but the opportunity there is in front of us. So I always use this slide, and sometimes I get commented that how come you've always got this curve up? Every matrix always goes up, but actually, if you look closely, from 2018 to 2022, mid-22, we were pretty flatlined. If anything, we were reversed because we were pretty stagnant as a business. And the reason for that is because we were waiting for the regulators to give us our licenses. Now, as I said before, with research, our team was still doing things in the background, but we can't put that as an upward curve today because we can't value that today. So we did have a bit of a backdrop, and we did start to come, but where the significant changes are from 23 to 24 and moving forward, now that we've got the necessary licenses, you can clearly see now that we're starting to get to revenue. And I know some investors potentially have got frustrated. Why has it took so long? Are we dragging with feet? Well, it's actually not. Back to that passion, back to commitment. I'm 24/7 in this business. We are pushing as hard as we possibly can, but there's only so much you can push a regulator. Now, Doug, and please bear in mind as well, this is new to the country. We're the first one to get these licenses in the country at the time. So you're trying to educate the inspectors as well. I would have loved nothing better for those red boxes to be red in 21 or 22, so we could be now at incredible revenue. But unfortunately, we're at the hands of the mercy of regulators. But we're there now. We've got over that hump, and that's why the curve is starting to go up. So our objective right from the very beginning has always been to get to that revenue and that profitability. We can now start to get to that. And that's hopefully this time next year, you'll see that curve being higher, more revenue. So just to recap of what we said around what opened Australia up and what opened Germany up and some of the other markets, and what we've identified as actually being a similar case in the UK. So in the UK, one of the fundamental issues has been no UK produced product. We've been reliant on importation of product. That has been very difficult. It's slow. I won't go too deep into it, but it's on a named patient basis. It's quite slow. It's expensive. The product is, we don't believe, of the quality of what it should be, and we're not just saying that. So there's been lots of challenges of importing the product. You've got to remember, we spent 80 years stopping the importation of a cannabinoid. And so all of a sudden, and it's, don't get me wrong, it's opening up, products coming in, but we believe by being a UK producer and selling products into the UK and the wider market, that should hopefully help open up the UK market. And people say, well, what about competitors? We welcome, and I always say this, we welcome more people in the UK getting licenses like CELADON have got. We know a couple of companies that will come through in the foreseeable future, and we're working with those companies, because the reason why we welcome it is the scale of the opportunity. There is no way CELADON could ever supply to the potential scale of opportunity in the short term. And I mean, in the next 5 to 10 years, it's just incredible, the opportunity. So the next issue is where we said about Germany, where it opened up on reimbursing. The next issue is, unfortunately, today in the UK, a patient has to pay for the product out of their own pocket. So there is no real reimbursement in the UK. We would like to think in time to come, there's no guarantee on this, but we would like to think that there hopefully will be a world where we will get reimbursement. Now, whether that's from insurance companies or the NHS, we would like to think that. It won't be overnight, but what we've got to do is talk to regulators and say, what do you want to make a decision to be able to potentially reimburse? And the government, under NICE guidelines, have come out with a document to say, before we will even sit down and consider reimbursement, we want these things. We need this data. We need the feedback. So what we have done in one of our subsidiary companies called LVL, it is a fully approved program now, and that program has been designed in conjunction with the requirements from the government. So that once we launch LVL live properly and fully, over the course of 1, 2, 3 years, as we're collecting that data, we can then furnish the government with that. And who knows, we may potentially get reimbursement in due course. The next one is the GPs, as we've said. Now, there is a lot of lobbying going on to try and get normal GPs to be able to prescribe instead of the doctors on the specialist register, just like they did in Australia. But what we're doing within CELADON or our subsidiary in LVL, we're going one step further than that. The LVL program is approved to be able to use GPs to prescribe for up to 5,000 patients. So again, when we launch this, we can use GPs. And the idea there is that the data that we collect from GPs prescribing, we can help these groups that are lobbying government to get GPs. We can give them that data and it will help them. So there's an awful lot going on in the background. Now, with or without this, there is still a growing market, but we think if we can achieve what we're trying to achieve here, it will supercharge the UK market. We're nearly at the end. So regarding press, we put this slide up for 2 reasons, really. One, we do think the market needs to now start changing more of awareness around the potential opportunity for the UK market for science, R&D, revenue, taxation for government, etc., etc. And we believe the bigger the awareness, again, more customers you'll get. The other thing is what we are starting to do as a business is start to get more awareness as well. And again, I get a lot of feedback from investors saying, look, we actually don't hear a lot of you, CELADON. We want more. And I will put my hand up, I will put my hand up. That is down to me. And the reason for that is I'm not one to try and build a business and just put RNSs out for the sake of putting RNSs out. There's no point me putting an RNS out saying, oh, we've changed the colour of our front door. It's just not going to work. We're trying to do things meaningful. Now, I know we've not done a great job at that communication between, but I can assure you, over the next coming months and years, that is our main goal, to keep you shareholders informed. So just to finish off, our sales, we never used to be able to put this slide up because we didn't have the licenses. Now we've got the licenses. As you can see, we're starting to get to sales, which is fantastic news. And I know a lot of you will be thinking, oh, it's great, it's only £1 million, you're burning £500,000 a month. When you're going to stop? Trust me, we are working on that. It has been my goal since day one. I don't like building businesses where I don't make money. So it is a key focus of ours. Expansion, again, we wanted to walk before we could run. We're now seeing an incredible uptake for demand of product. So not only are we pushing hard on our phase 2 to finish the fit out, we've finished the construction. Not only are we pushing hard on that, we're also exploring other potential opportunities of joint venturing with other companies where they use our IP and our genetics and potentially grow under license for us. So it'll help us expand. The other one, LVL, as I've mentioned, that we had to do an observation study that's now finished. We are now just finishing the business plan to get ready to launch LVL into the UK market. So that is exciting. And last but not least, financing. As John said before, we've been successful at raising 30 million since we founded the business. But the real key one is, I think, is a testament to ourselves. And I know some shareholders say, yeah, but you keep diluting us, etc., etc. But to be able to raise £5 million in the last quarter in this current climate, it's not been easy. It is difficult, but we've done it. And the reason why we had to go and do that, as you see on the curve, had we have not been delayed with the licenses, we wouldn't have had to go and do that. So now we feel that we're in such a strong position. We're capitalized. We've extended our credit line. We've closed out the funding round. That's it now. We are not looking to come back to market in the foreseeable future, hopefully for more capital, unless potentially an incredible opportunity comes along, but we'll assess it at that point. So on that note, I will hand it over to Q&A.
That's great, James. Jonathan, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. While the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via our investor dashboard. James, Jonathan, as you can see, we have received a number of questions throughout today's presentation. And if I may now hand back to you and kindly ask you to read out the questions, give responses where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you both at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So the first question, and I think I've touched on this a bit because I have been asked this several times. So the first question is, it seems to be every time I talk, I always tend to talk about the patient first, and then go on about the business. And what they're saying is what we need from investors is a clear explanation around commercialization. And I do apologize if that hasn't come across, but please believe me, commercialization is from day one when I set this business up. But again, we have to keep focused on, and I will never change from that. It's the customer. Get the customer right, get the product right, and you'll be happy and I'll be happy. The revenue will come through. So I can only emphasize that our clear vision is to get to revenue and keep expanding on that revenue. But one of the other takeaways is we have managed to keep a first leader advantage. And yes, there will be others. But as I've said, the market opportunity is vast, and it's our job and our duty to go and capture some of that now and just keep growing on that. And we know that, and we're doing that. But actually, the other thing that we're doing is some of the incredible stuff that our guys have been doing in the background for the last 3 years in the R&D side. And hopefully that will start coming through for even further revenue beyond what we've seen. Next question, what does our board feel about the company being listed on AIM and the plans for dual listing in the US? Again, and this is not just that I get asked this, but my board obviously asks me, and I say to the board, we as a business have to constantly keep looking at the environment. What are we trying to do? What, is it cash we need? Is it valuation we need? Is it so? In simple, short answer is we as a business are constantly looking at all the opportunities. What we have to be very good at is, and I've learned this over 30 years of building businesses, you just got to watch the noise because the grass isn't always greener. But having said that, I can guarantee you we are constantly looking at what are our opportunities, dual listing, as you've said, US, is it, or other jurisdictions, or strategic partners, or whatever it may be. We are constantly looking at that, I can assure you. The next one for me, as completion of sale in the UK or exported. So the completions, so they not completed because the sale is continuing. So we have started to supply to the UK contract that we signed the back end of last year. We have started to get that revenue in. The non-UK one, we haven't started to supply to that yet. The idea is that we start supplying that towards the end of this year, albeit it'll be small volume because they want to build up at their end. So in answer to your question, it's predominantly the UK at the moment.
So it is worth just flagging that we have from time to time exported products in the past for testing purposes. So there'll be no issue when it comes to making those export sales.
Yeah, and just to widen that a little bit, and I don't know whether that's where the question come from, there has been a number of people concerned that we won't be able to export out of the UK. And actually you can, as John said, we've had 7 shipments go to the US for testing. We've had one to put a few into Europe, albeit it's for testing, but actually there is a framework there for exporting. There is no such thing as a carte blanche export license. You can only export on consignment at a time. And that is because the regulator has a quota to work to. So we don't, as John says, see a problem with exporting product to other parts of the world. I'll let you take Paul's one, John, shall I? Oh, no, I'll do that one. How are we managing to get contracts? Good question, Paul. So the contracts that we have signed, we've actually been working on those for over 2 years. Some of the people that we are working with now, we've met 2, maybe 3 years ago. The problem we've had, Paul, is we haven't been able to sign any contracts because we potentially would have let our customer down because we didn't have a license and we didn't know when we were going to get our license. So, we've been talking to them, they've met us. The new ones that are coming through, Paul, are ones that pure word of mouth of the fact that we're now licensed. The market seems to want good UK quality GMP, and it is all word of mouth. And if you ever get the opportunity to come and visit the facility, I wouldn't just turn up because it's a secure facility, but you will see what we're building, and we think that's how we're managing to get some of those contracts. So next question, maximum capacity. So the maximum capacity, Nick, is it is around about that 15 tons, and I wanted to pick up on this on the earlier slide where we showed the UK of 8 million patients. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the opportunity, our facility, as you quite rightly said, Nick, is at full capacity. We could probably produce about 90 million of revenue. We may be able to heat that a bit more because of efficiencies. But that aside, it means we can only produce a product for about 50 to 60,000 people. So you can see the scale of the potential opportunity. And that's why we are now looking at how can we go beyond our facility? Because I am personally sick about talking about 100,000 square foot facility. I'm now looking at I want 1 million square foot. So we're now looking at how can we do that cost effective. And we believe partnerships are going to be the best way forward. So we don't have to go and keep raising capital to build new buildings. And we've got a number of conversations going on with some really good UK operators where they will build it out at our spec and we'll do a sale and leaseback type thing. So, hope that answers your question, Nick.
Sorry, just to clarify though, it's 9 tons of capacity.
Sorry,
when the facility is fully completed, not 50.
Sorry. Will we be looking to contract grow under license? Yes, we agree. Another good question. So we've 2 strings to the growing business. One is we have our own genetics, and we also have had lots of people approach us because they want access to the UK market, and they're asking us, would we grow their genetics under license and sell them that product back? And in actual fact, we are in advanced talks with one particular probably one of the largest in this space at the moment, and we're in advanced talks with them to potentially look at growing under contract for them. Don't get me wrong, Paul, I don't want to be seen as a contract grower, but at the end of the day, we look at it as a partnership. So yes, we will do that, and then we can help them with the channel as well, maybe through our LVL trial.
That's great, James. Jonathan, thank you for addressing those questions for investors today. And of course, the company can review all questions submitted today, and we will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But before we redirect investors to provide you with their feedback, which is particularly important to the company, James, could I please ask you for a few closing comments?
Yes, and I know you guys hear this all the time where CEOs say thank you very much and blah, 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 but I sincerely mean it. It has been challenging, the whole market's been challenging, but I really do sincerely want to thank you all, not just the investors, but I also want to thank the naysayers, the ones that are saying, oh, you're going to fail, you're going to this and that, because again, that's one of the things that drives us as well. That doesn't mean I want more inbound naysayers. It's just, I genuinely want to thank you. And all I can say is we are working as hard as we possibly can to make this a success, period. So thank you very much. And hopefully you'll keep supporting us moving forward.
Fantastic, James. Jonathan, thank you once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of CELADON Pharmaceuticals PLC, I'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.